Everybody, I'm back for another session of Relic Knights painting. So we're trying a couple different things. I got another light set up here, and I've got a new webcam, which will hopefully give us a little more better shots, especially of the models themselves. So if you didn't watch last time, it's up on YouTube. You should be able to check it out. But we painted these guys. You can see we kind of
rated T for teen.
Oh, why are you doing that? Twitch? Okay. So use this to show a little better. But we did all the skin on our Noh Berserkers, and which took a number of steps. Again, we dry brushed them quite a few times and did a nice ink wash on them. You can go back and watch the other video for that. And we did a base coat here on their armor. You can see that bronze tin bits color on their armor. Focus. And so now we're going to basically go ahead and do that gold, and we're going to also work on the rest of their armor. So, without further ado, so remember last time we base coated the armor with tin bits. Well, it's actually Vallejo model colored tinny tin, which is fake tin bits from Games Workshop. Now we're going to find our Dwarven Bronze, which has another name, as they all do, for this line. So I think I mentioned this before, but all of these colors, they wanted to make them so that you could, if you were a user of the Games Workshop paints, you could basically do these one for one, and they're exact copies of the paint colors. But in order to not be have any sort of trademark or copyright issues, they basically made them just a little bit different. So Warlock purple is Warlord purple, and Fortress gray is Fortification gray or something. So this is normally was back when these were made Dwarven Bronze, and it is bright bronze. So I know we were going for these to be gold, but so we'll start with that tin color, work our way up a little bit through bronze and then to gold. So we are dry brushing, and again, we're using a small dry brush here. And again, the key with all this dry brushing is don't have too much paint on your brush. A lot of people go, oh man, dry brushing looks awful. You're doing, why would you do that? And usually that's because there's too much paint on the brush. So the key is to have as little paint as possible, and then just build it up more slowly. So if the longer you dry brush it for, the more you'll actually build up. So now this is the first layer of dry brushing we're doing. So we really want it to basically get everywhere but the cracks is what we're going for. And so anywhere I base coated with that tin bits color, we're going to now dry brush over with this not Dwarven Bronze, to try to get it so that it is over. So if you can see this at all, hopefully it'll focus a little bit. In that base plate here, we have will you help it focus? Yeah, so it's got those colors, but on these side panels you can see they're still dark. So that's what we're going for. And again, this is a good tip for doing gold in general, which is, again, start with this really dark tin color. Do a heavy dry brush, and again, when heavy, that doesn't mean we'll take less paint off the brush. That means build it up for longer. And then we're going to do a lighter dry brush of a nice solid gold color. And then we're going to we're going to ink wash it to really bring it together and make it look a little tarnished. So you can see I'm having a little bit more trouble getting under the arm here. If it gets a little less covered though, that's not a big deal, because if it's harder for my brush to get in there, then it makes sense that it would be a little darker in there and it'll all work out. So you can actually see on my paper towel, I'm wiping it off here, that by the time I'm done wiping it, it has barely any paint on the brush. And that might even be a little too much. Again, if you watched the last one as well, you'll know that the key here is that our models have hard edges. So they're essentially going to scrape the paint off the brush when we're dry brushing like this. This paper towel does not have very hard edges because it's made of paper instead of plastic resin. So if you're getting any paint off on paper towel, then that means then significantly more is going to come off onto your model. Now, these parts are interesting. I don't know why I decided to do these as the gold, because they are actually like very flat surfaces. So it's not gonna pay off as well with dry brushed here. So, but that's what we've decided, and we're gonna keep doing it. But again, we already did all of the red and all the skin, so we're going to be very careful not to, even though we're dry brushing, we're using a very small dry brush, we're going to be very careful not to get any of this onto that skin that we already painted. But we haven't done the silver on the edgings, so we don't care if we get anything on there. So that's the gist of this bit. I'm not sure how much more interesting we have to say about it. So just kind of as an overview of what we're going to do next, as we get into this, we are going to. So we're gonna finish up this gold color, like I said, with another gold dry brush and then a nice ink wash, brown with a little bit of black in it. And then we'll get our gold all nice and done. And then we're going to go on to doing the silver, which is most of what's left on these guys. So that's going to be all their swords, all the other parts of their additional parts of their armor that we haven't gotten yet, armor plates, all that kind of stuff. Then after that, we have their pants and any cloth that's going on. Those are going to be like a khaki color. We'll probably do his little fancy shoes like that as well. Then we have their hair, which I'm going to do white, very similar to what's in the books. And then finally we have their any kind of claw. So we have like their teeth and horns, and like this guy has some like a string that's holding his shoes on. And so that's just going to be like a simple little sort of bone or khaki color to make those pop. And then I always do the eyes. Doing the eyes really makes things pop out, makes the model pop. If you don't, that's one of those ones where you definitely don't have to do it, but especially with bigger models like these, it looks really nice when you do. We are bronzy. Please focus. Why don't you want to focus? I put my hand under, it'll help. Why are you being such a jerk? Alright, so that's what we got. But we'll move on to the rest of our guys. Oh, I forgot. This guy has. I'll do that at the end. This guy has little ear studs that are also doing gold, which is kind of a pain in the butt. But we're not going to dry brush those because it's just not possible to not hit the skin and dry brush those. This guy has this little like evil looking face on his belt buckle. It's like the biggest belt buckle in the world. And we're doing that all in gold too. So this will be interesting. It's got a lot of nice texture to it. So no problem whatsoever doing that dry brush. We're running out a little bit. So I have unfortunately not gotten to play any Relic Knights yet. Life has been crazy, but I'm pretty excited about it. I keep hearing that people think that the melee attacks are not powerful enough, and that the fact that you have to get into melee, especially with these guys in their large bases, is too much of a deterrent. So, and I can kind of see what they're saying now that I think about it. Oh, I got a little gem here. Should have gotten that with this silver, or with the gold. That would have been good, like I did on the other one. But I can always go back and touch that up with a nice color or something. I guess that does make sense. So I mean, like, it seems like, this is just from reading the rules and sort of theorying it stuff out, that getting into melee probably shouldn't be too big a deal. The battlefield's relatively small. You've got the multiple moves. You have to get involved with a bunch of these objectives, and so people are sort of forced to congregate in specific areas. So getting the range to get in melee seems like it's not anyone's issue anyway. But it's that, depending on how the scenery is packed together, you just might not be able to actually physically fit your base there. And I think a lot of people are, and it's, if you're on top of terrain, you're not allowed to put your model up there unless you can totally fit up there. So if someone stands in such a way that your large base isn't going to fit on top of that terrain with them, they essentially become immune to melee attacks. So I'm interested to see how that goes. But at the same time, if you're up on top of... It seems like this game is designed so that killing the other force is not how you're going to win. It might help you out, but especially in a scenario where, as long as you have enough models to fill your ready queue, it's not like you're going to miss out on any action. So in a lot of other pretty much all other miniature games, what essentially will happen is I have 10 units. I can essentially do 10 things this turn. You kill off one of those units, I can only do 9 things this turn, because that's how the games operate, right? This guy's got ear studs too. So that's how the games operate. Every unit gets to do something every turn. But that's not how Relic Knights works. Relic Knights is we go back and forth, and if we're playing a small game and our ready queue is only 2 units, then we each have 4. So if you're playing this game like with just a starter set like this, you'll have 4 units to go. Granted, the Cypher is one of them, but you're essentially not losing much, if any, activation power until you've lost everything but 1, because you're still going to constantly be able to activate units. And so I'm interested to see how it actually plays out. With all the scenarios and whatnot. So now this guy's pretty cool. He's got this big sort of like demon lion looking thing on his gun. Right? And so I decided to do that all gold, so I'm interested to see how this will come out once I do my dry brushing. And again, remember, this dry brush, the goal is to get everything but the cracks, essentially. Because remember, this is supposed to be gold. We don't want it to be bronzy or tinny, but we're just trying to build those colors up into it. So we want the very deep cracks to be that tin color, but really not much else. So we want the deepest cracks to be the tin color. We want pretty much all the surfaces to be at least bronze. And then from there we build that up, and we want probably most of the surfaces to be gold. Again, this is not actually that bad, but if we we basically just put a highlight of the gold on here, it's going to look pretty good as a gold. It's going to look like weathered gold is what we're going for, not like bright, shiny, bling, bling, bling gold. So in order to do that, we're going to build it up like this. Hopefully, because there's something else pulling it a little close to the... Again, we're making a most concerted effort not to get any of this skin. If we have, it's not the end of the world. We can go back and touch it up, but you'll be much happier if you don't. Also, you have to make sound effects while you do it. That's part of the rules. And we are using a dry brush for this. You can take an old brush and make it into a dry brush, but you don't want to just start dry brushing with an old brush. The most important feature of a dry brush is that the bristles are all of similar length. So you don't have a point there, nothing's sticking out. So what that'll do is make sure it sort of evenly distributes things and doesn't have individual bristles and strands that are sticking out into stuff. If that makes sense. So after I do this, I am going to do a wash over it, which is going to take a little bit of time to dry. So we're going to get started on base coating at least of Spite and Zaneta. They're going to be purple. Because A, purple's awesome, and B, that's kind of how they looked in the books, and I liked how they looked. So there are some forces where I will sort of make up my own thing and do how they look, but I don't think that's going to happen a lot for my Relic Knights stuff. Like, I like the red demonic skin of the Noh. Like, I think it looks really cool as is. I don't want to mess with that too much. As you already heard, we're changing up some, like, the cloth and the way some of their armor is done. So we are changing up some small details of it, but the main look, the red skin, the white hair, I just already like it, so no reason to mess with it too much. Black Diamond, it seems a little strange. Like, they're called the Black Diamond, so it seems a little strange to do them anything other than like black or dark gray. So I'll hold him up, see if you can see some of this. You can see it's looking kind of cool. Also, red and gold just like always looks good together, so you can't go too far astray with that. So, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Now the Cersei will be fun because those are the 3 factions I got from the Kickstarter. Cersei will be fun because I can literally just kind of do crazy colors on all of them. With a lot of games, this will be something I do, which is I'll pick one or like a faction, depending on how big it is and how many models I get for the faction. I'll pick 1 or 2 things where I'll get it, and just to try to get it quickly. So with my War Machine, I picked up Cricks, and I just said, I'm not going to fret about this. I am just going to paint it quickly. Quick and dirty, get it on the tabletop, make it look acceptable. But then I'll pick another force or another group that I'll do with the purpose of wanting to spend my time and make them look a little better. And that way, I don't have to feel... I have a force that I can play with, and it looks good on the battlefield. So I said their ear studs are a little... I don't want to dry brush them because then I will mess up their skin that we already painted, so I'm going to do that now. And again, just being very careful. If you brace your hands against each other like this, it allows you to kind of get in there real tight and not worry about your hands shaking too much. Everyone's hands shake a little bit, but this helps make it not matter as much. Blang blang. So anyway, so Noh and Black Diamond, I'm probably gonna... So Black Diamond I'm gonna do like probably super speedy just because painting a force that has all that armor like that, it's gonna be really easy. I can do a little bit of like put a little more effort into like some of the gems and the lights and the glowy stuff, but in general they're gonna be pretty quick to paint up. So now we're on to, this is glorious gold. I believe in the original Games Workshop it was shining gold, but so I wash my brush off for dry brushing, and when I dry, I got to make sure it's really, really dry. If it's not, then it's going to be kind of wet, and it's going to leak into the stuff you're trying to dry brush, and it's just not going to work out very well. So make sure your brush is super dry, water-wise, before you even start trying to dry brush it again. Dry brush with it again. So now we have this gold, and we're not going to do as much with this. Although you can get pretty heavy with it. It's not too big a deal. The idea for this is if our brass got everything but the cracks, this one you want to get maybe half of everything of the raised surfaces. And again, remember your dry brushing, you want to kind of go against the grain. So you see these big lines here. I don't want to go with the line because then I'll actually get it in the cracks. The idea behind dry brushing is to not get in the cracks. So I want to go up and down like this. And this isn't going to be the final look. So if you see some smudges or it doesn't look 100% even, don't worry too much. But the key here is you're getting it on a decent portion of it, and you are especially getting it on the edges. So remember, we're going to do an ink wash after this to kind of clean it up anyway. So what we really just don't want is to get way too much paint on it and sort of smudge it. And just get a whole, like, just smear of paint all over it. Because that would look messy. And that is dry brushing's biggest problem, which is why we don't usually do it. But again, you can make models look decent like this. And that's what we're going to do. So what were we talking about earlier? Yeah, we were talking about the Noh and their melee problem. So I'm interested to see how that works out. Like, I could see how it would be a problem, but I'm also interested to see how many of the, like, how big a problem that actually is. Like, obviously being able to do damage to stuff is a problem, but maybe you just need to pick some different units and not have 100% melee with no alternatives in your army. I don't know. Like, I have a hard time believing they could have play tested it much and attack types. But I assume it's possible. But that is always one thing I find very amusing is when there's like a force that everyone just says is bad, and then finally someone, like a really good player, goes, okay, let's just figure this out, and they figure it out, and they figure out how to play it, and they start beating a bunch of people, and then all of a sudden the conventional wisdom changes. So you'll be able to see. In terms of other eclectic gaming that's going on, we are starting a new role-playing campaign. When our GM had to leave town, so he's still going to play remotely via webcam, but it's hard to do. He doesn't want to try to GM like that, so we are going to start a Warhammer 40,000 Rogue Trader campaign. That is going to be new and interesting and exciting, hopefully. At least it's definitely going to be new. And we'll see about the interesting and exciting. It'll be fun. I like trying new things, hence the eclectic gamer, right? So, because of our build up here, it's already starting to look a little dingy and scruffy looking, which is what we wanted. But it's still a little bright. And again, with this, I do a lot of my models like this, and sort of the same technique. And this is what you can do for anything: is base coat it a real base color, dry brush it up with sort of like a second shade, and that second shade should be around where you want the whole tonal quality to look. And then you're going to do it with a third shade, a third highlight, that's much brighter than you actually want it to look. And the reason for that is you then go and then do an ink wash over the whole thing to sort of just bring the colors back down. It does a couple things. It brings the colors back down, and any like sort of smudges and things that you got from the dry brushing. Dry brushing isn't the most exact science. We'll get a little cleaned up and brought back together by the ink wash. And that's what we did with the skin. We started with a dark red. We dry brushed sort of a medium tone red on, and then we dry brushed a much lighter red on, and then ink washed it with a red wash with some brown and some black in it, and that brought it to this beautiful looking shade we see now, with all the highlights and the shades. It's very exciting. And that's, almost exactly what we're going to do here with the gold, except with it. Sometimes, depending on how you want it to look and how deep you want the highlights, will affect what colors you use. So, like, we don't actually have 3 shades of gold, but our darkest is a tin, and went to a bronze. So that's looking pretty blank-tastic. You can still see a lot of the shadows in there. Which is what we want. And again, of course, we got to get the ear studs. If anyone's wondering what this palette is, it's just a normal, just a white ceramic tile I got for 50 cents or whatever at Home Depot. This is a habit I picked working at the Games Workshop, that's where we do all the painting. You didn't want, for a number of reasons, you don't want to necessarily leave your paint pots open. Again, if you're a more responsible painter, you can. But especially when I was teaching kids to paint, we didn't want to do that. So you basically have these tiles, and you put your paint on the tile, and use that as like a palette, like a painter's palette, which works pretty well. So now I got that gold done. Again, especially when you're dry brushing, it's going to dry very quickly. So you can almost go right on to any ink wash you want to do. So unfortunately, I need to get some Devlin mud, which I don't have. So we're going to be using this gray tone sepia, and we're just going to add a little more black to it than maybe we normally would for this. It's gonna look pretty similar. So I'm going to use an eyedropper just so we can be a little closer with the numbers. So I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 drops of the gray tone sepia. And then Null oil is basically your black wash. And I'll try to post a link to this. I'm just going to do 1, 2 drops of black, and I'll do 3 of black. So it's a 4 to 3. Nope. Now I'm going to mix this up. Let me take a look at that color. So that's about where I want it. I like that color. I do want this, however, to be to recess a little bit more. So you can do this. I have a post about this that I'll link to here in the video on the website. If you're watching on Twitch right now, you should actually be able to see the link to the website, and you can search for ink washes. Sorry, I'm looking at the desk drawer. I need like a safety pin or a paper clip or something here. Poke a hole in this. Let's see if this pencil will work. Sorry, I opened this in my box and it was actually, the top had broken. So I'll be right back, you guys. Sorry for the little bit of a delay here. But I'm going to get some more mixing. Oh, so this is P3 mixing medium. Again, if you look on that link, you'll see how you can use PVA glue or dish soap or mixing medium to increase the surface tension of your paints. So I'm also going to add two drops of water in there. And let's just actually add it in here. And then we'll say 2 drops of mixing medium. So surface tension is science. Boo, right? Science? No science is fun. So basically surface tension is what makes your paint or water bead up instead of not beading up. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to throw it in there. And again, with this wash, I'm just going to throw it all over the whole thing. And, you know, very liberally, because I want it to get in the cracks. I want it to go all over. So, surface tension is what makes the makes water bead up. And from my understanding is, and this could be wrong, but because water is, I'm totally getting backwards. It's been a long time since I've been in chemistry, but it's got 2 hydrogen and 1 oxygen molecules. They sort of always tend to form in one direction, with oxygen on one end and the hydrogen on the other, and they basically form like little magnets. And they all stick to it. All the water molecules will stick to each other, and so that's why if you drop some water on the counter or on my paint palette here, it will form into a bead as opposed to running all over the place. And so that beading action actually can be useful when we're painting, because what that does is if it beads more, it means it groups together more. And if it's on just a flat surface, that means it beads. But if you're on a 3-dimensional model like this, what that means is that it will pool in the cracks more than it would have otherwise. And so when I'm adding this mixing medium or when I'm adding PVA glue, what that's going to do is it increases the surface tension. It's going to make the wash bead more. And I am actually going to get it on the darker. So that's what it looks like for now. So it's actually pooling in there quite a bit. But that's good, because that allows us to kind of control where the beading, how much beading is happening, and where so even though I'm slopping this ink wash on here, I'm just throwing it on there in big gobs. Because I've increased the surface tension by adding this mixing medium, I know where it's going to go. It's going to accumulate in the cracks. And what that's going to do when it's combined with all of our paint is that it's going to accumulate in the cracks, and then as it gets farther and farther away from the cracks, there's going to be less and less paint. And so it's going to give us and this is what, when you buy a Games Workshop wash, this is what it's already doing. They've done some of this already. It's not just paint. We used to be able to buy just the inks. That's what kind of that was. It was just like a very thin, low pigment or high pigment wash, high pigment paint that you could do this. You could then do this with to make a nice wash. But when they sell these washes by themselves, this is basically what's happened, what they've done to it. And so because it beads more, it'll accumulate in those cracks, and it'll as it gets away from those cracks, there'll be Sorry, there's a hole in that. So just make sure it doesn't beat up. So as you do it more and more, it will, as it gets away from those cracks, it will, there'll start to be less and less paint, and it'll kind of make it a nice gradual fade, which is what we wanted. Get his ear studs, and that'll get us that sort of automatic shading that you're looking for with a wash. And so if we add even more mixing medium to this to increase the surface tension even more, what that means, and if you look on that ink washing article I have on the website, you'll get to see specific examples, not just abstract ones. So the more surface tension you have in there, the more it will bead and recede, and so it'll basically shade the part you're working on less. So some people use ink washes like a glaze, but the more surface tension you have, the more it will pool in those cracks, and it won't really glaze the rest of the color as much. So if you want more of a glaze, you want to actually kind of reduce the surface tension. You can do that with some hand dish soap, ideally unscented if you can, just to make sure there's not any extra gunk in there. And if you want it to glaze less and get more in the cracks and have it more of a sharp contrast between the recesses and the raised areas, then you want to increase the surface tension. And again, you do that with, I use this P3 mixing medium. I also regularly use just straight white PVA glue. Works very well as well. And you can see in that article, you can see some of the examples. So I'll try to hold this up again, see if he can show you his gun. Boop. So you can see how it's pooling in there now. And I'll show you that a little more after it dries. So part of the problem now is this is going to take a little while to dry, as that all recedes in there. And so I'm going to start working on some of the other models next. Let's just base coating them. And so we are working on the Noh starter. So that means we have Zenata and Spite left. And they're going to be purple. They're demons. And why not? So, where is my dark purple? Blue. Royal purple. Why not? Gotta make camera rotate. Oops. Sorry. So I'm gonna add a drop of water in there, just to make sure it's not too thick. If you're newer to painting, you want to make sure that you don't want to dip the whole bristles in the paint. You want it only to get up to a certain point, so the whole bristles aren't covered, because then that will actually ruin your paintbrush quite a bit. So this part is going to be kind of boring. This is why I base coated all the red on the other guys before I went on. I actually started recording it last time. But while we're waiting for those guys to dry, it's a good way to kill time. And this is the first part we're doing, so it's okay if it kind of slops onto the other parts. I'm actually not sure how I'm going to paint all of these. I like the purple skin from some of the studio models, but we'll see what else looks good. I'll have to do some research here, I think. So in order to keep the color sort of similar, I don't want the whole army to look too different. It's probably going to be... These are probably going to be the two main color schemes. So for all the big, crazy demon guys like that, they're going to be like the red and the gold. And then I'm going to try to make a lot of the other things just like the purple shade. So Spite and Zenata are going to be like that. The Noh Priestess, even the Hounds of Naga, they can kind of share this purple color scheme. I think I should basically be able to get everything in the army to fit into one of those 2 schemes. It's okay to have a little diversity like that. So she's wearing like a big helmet with a cowl, so she actually doesn't have... I can't tell if those are supposed to... What's supposed to be what here? I'm going to paint these purple just in case they're supposed to be, so I don't have to go back and do it later. So what else was I talking about? Let's see what's going on miniature wise. I do want to get back to some of my War Machine models. I'm doing some of my so this model has like, she's got like skin and then also scales. So we'll do all this. I'm actually just gonna do the whole thing purple for right now. Options. Okay, so we've got some base coating done here, so that can start to dry. We're gonna work on them in sort of the interim time killing portions while we're working on everybody else. So, what part is next? Let's go ahead and put the golds and things we were using before away. So I could work on the silver, but a lot of the gold that's still drying here touches the silver. So I think I'm going to start working on sort of the khaki cloth of the pants. So that'll get us a lot more started done. So I'm looking for my khaki color here. So this would be the main color we want to use. This is called khaki, which is the stupidest name of all time. But it's called Commando Khaki for the original Games Workshop color. But we're not going to. Maybe we'll base with that. No, we're gonna base with this. It's called Terra Earth, but I believe that was Graveyard Earth in the original color. And I'm just gonna start base coating this. I'm gonna give myself a little pool of water here to draw from, as my paint might start to dry out a little bit. And I'll make sure while that the gold is still drying, we want to absolutely make sure we don't hit it if we can help it. So you'll notice that a lot of this is gray. This is not because I primed it gray or it came gray. It's because I primed it black because that gives you a lot of nice like deep recesses. But then I always will go over my black primed models and dry brush them with a light gray. And that does a couple things. One, it allows you to see the details in the model, so you can kind of know what's what when you're choosing how to divide up your paint colors. And then two, it makes everything like a shade lighter. So if you're like I said, when I was base coating this red, which is notoriously hard to get over black, it made it a couple steps easier because you weren't going over straight black, you were going over a gray color. So it does those two things, which is really useful. So I kind of just do it on everything, and I start with black. So I'm sort of debating whether these lower leg parts are going to be armor or cloth. I'm sort of not sure what the best direction to go with it is. So I'm gonna have to bust out the book and take a look, see what they did in the original. So his club here is going to be bone. It's got these engravings in it, and that seems to make sense. It's going to be another color we have to do, but that's okay. And we're just base coating here, so the key is to make sure we got good coverage on the whole thing. We don't miss anything. It looks like when I was doing the gold, when I base coated, I intended to do these knee pads in a gold, but I forgot them. So I have to figure out another step for that. Either I have to go back and do them in gold, or I'm gonna have to just choose them to be another color, which is also allowed. These boots look pretty armored, or do they? No, I don't know. So a lot of these look like leather straps, so I'm going to paint them in this khaki color. Or rather that in. Yep. Makes sense. This one is actually a little bit trickier. This is actually good that I'm choosing to do this khaki color before I do the armor, because there are a lot of parts, especially in this render, this guy, where it looks like he's wearing, sort of a cloth leather thing under his armor, which if I were to do the armor first, it would be a lot harder to get at this cloth part to paint it if the armor is already painted. So it turns out to accidentally be a really good idea. So those knee pads look like armor. These ones look like armor too? Yeah, they do. So it looks like just down to his knee that this is going to be cloth. This and that. Our gold is finally starting to dry here, and I'm liking the way it looks. I'll make sure to show some nice shots of it now before we're done for the evening here. So that's that. We got all what we want to have be khaki colored cloth here on our Noh. So I'm actually going to go bust out the rule book just so I can take a look at what the what it look like. Which are always good to use as a reference. So, we're looking at it here. Looks like they actually had some random purple cloth in here. Not sure what that all is supposed to be. I don't know if it's supposed to be their skin going from purple, but it does look like these shin portions. I don't know if you can see all this. But yeah, on here, these shin portions look like they were painted as armor for a lot of these, including the renderers are a little hard to see, but yeah, well, that does look like it's armor in the way they're doing this. So I'm not crazy to make that armor colored instead of cloth colored. So that is what I'm going to do. So, looks like we're good on the khaki then. So I'm still, this gold is still drying a little bit. So instead of working on another part, I'm actually going to just work on the next base coat. I want their hair to be white. So I'm going to start base coating that. And we don't want it to get too dark. But it might take a couple coats here to get it on here. Now this is actually, this hair, I don't know if it's supposed to be like, not like real hair. It's not very detailed on the models themselves. Well, some of it is. Like this guy with the ponytail is not too, like this little samurai ponytail the detail is not too bad. But the other ones are like, they look more like tentacles than they do look like hair. So it's a little strange. Alright, so now, again, I'm getting very close to portions that are already completely painted, so I have to be very careful as I'm doing that. But we're going to base coat it with actually maybe a lighter color than we want to be the darkest. So because we can do it like a little light ink wash on this just to get in the cracks. But if we actually want this hair to be white, then we want it to be we actually want to start with a pretty light color. Otherwise it's going to come out sort of strange. It's probably going to come out sort of strange anyway, but that's okay. So if I were trying to paint these guys in a much easier to paint way, I would not do the hair white. This is going to be a pain, and it's not going to end well, probably even for me. But I'm going to do it anyway. So if I were looking for a shortcut here, I would paint their hair black. And then just dry brush it up with a couple little grays, like dark grays, and just do that. It would make your life so much easier, especially if you're a newer painter. Trying to paint anything white as a newer painter is really bad. This red on the skin is bad enough. Red is a pain. Reds, so yellow and white are the worst. Red is shortly after them, because at least it's a little easier to fumble your way through a red. But yeah, I wouldn't, if I were you and you didn't want this hassle, I would not go with white. But if you're going to stick with me, then you can go ahead and watch and see how I do it and laugh at my failure. That's okay. It's actually like just for the block coloring, I kind of like how this looks so far. We definitely have to sort of get a darker gray like near the skin, so this isn't so shocking in the transition from skin to hair. This is sort of an anime themed game, so I do like the idea that it's like the idea of doing a very like bold color palette like this. That's probably part of the reason why I'm inclined to do the white, even though it's going to be a pain. Hopefully y'all can see this. decently. Again, I just set up the new webcam this week, so everything's a little different. So I'm sorry if this is a little intricate. I'm trying very hard not to get any of this on his skin because it will just be a pain to redo if I get it on there. So this part unfortunately looks like it's hair. Again, you will all save yourselves a lot of pain and misery if you do not do the hair white. So, keep that in mind. So, turn it on in the chat there. I will get back to you. I just want to concentrate on doing this. Yeah. If anyone has any painting questions, let me know. So he's got a little bit of hair down here as well. See that? I'm actually kind of maybe do want to do this. I don't know. Like, I'm liking how it makes the model pop a lot more. Like, it was starting to look a little dull, and I'm sure getting the silver on here will help as well. With the popping, since I only done like the gold and the very muted tones, but yeah, I think this is gonna be good. That was a pain. Wow. Get it on there. I will try to zoom in. So let me see. Yeah, let me see what I can do about zooming in. Thank you, Chibi Vampire. I think there is something I can do. Let me. Properties. This will be a little better, I think. Maybe I can do even more. So there's a very weird little key to painting that I learned. So I worked at a Games Workshop store for a number of years, and part of my job was to basically teach people to paint who had never painted before. Not only did we run painting classes and teach people how to paint all these armies they bought, but we would do painting demos for people who just like walked in off the street, right? So like people who weren't even necessarily interested in it yet, and try to get them to try it. And the biggest key to doing it, and like the easiest way to, because everyone says, oh, my hands shake, I can't do that. Like absolutely everyone. I'll try to keep it in frame, but it's kind of hard to do it at all times. Maybe I can. Yeah, I think that's a little better. But so the key is the power of the triangle. I don't know what I would say. So if you can't obviously see it, but you can probably see it from the side camera. My elbows are on the table, or they're resting against the side of the table. And when I paint, usually my hands are together each other. And so this stupid little trick does wonders, because what it does is when my hands are braced against each other like this, they still shake, and my hands shake. You can probably even see it. But when your hands are braced together like that, they shake together. And that might sound silly, but what happens is, if my left hand shakes, my right hand shakes with it, and if they're both shaking in the same direction, then it doesn't feel like shaking. And I don't mess up the model, because the brush is in the same position relative to the model that it was before, after, and during the shake. So that is sort of the key, I think. It's like one tiny little trick that makes it much easier. And then we'll do the belly hair. I need some manscaping, but that's okay. So Chibi Vampire, are you do you play Relic Knights here, or how'd you find this? Still want to get a game in. Oh yes, I will get a game in. Just paint my tripod. I think it did. Alright, so sometimes after painting for a little while, the paint will build up on the brush, and if the paint gets on the brush for too long, it will actually like go up the brush like water going up a paper towel, and it'll get into the part where the bristles are connected to the brush and actually start to split the bristles apart from each other. So it's good to periodically clean your brush off. Just got your Kickstarter package Friday. Haven't even put them together yet. Does that mean you were one of the crazy backers who did the like gotta get them all and had your shipment delayed? Was that you? Anyone who's watching this in the future, because I put these on YouTube too. I know there was a shipping delay with the Kickstarter where it was rough, because not only did a bunch of packages not go out, but they were all shipments from people who had like bought one of everything. Like, so it was a little rough. It was like the most dedicated backers were the ones who got their shipments not sent out. I feel bad for them. So which factions did you pick up, if the answer is not all of them? Yep, five times all starters. Wow. The image is all upside down on end, but it looks fine as you paint. Sometimes I do hold the models upside down to get at them a little differently. I tried to make it so that it looks like you're holding the model and painting, so you can kind of see it as you would hold it. Let me know if that's weird for people. I mean, I actually had to flip the camera image to get it this way, so I can always flip it back. Oh, you guys have the same color. That is Varagon 5011. What's up, Varagon? Which factions did you pick up? So Chibi Vampire, since you picked up 5 of all the factions, which is crazy. Do you like run a store or something, or is that all for you? And also, which faction are you gonna put together and be excited about first? Wow, this guy's got a lot of hair. This is ridiculous. I don't know. I'm calling this a mane of hair, I think, would be an understatement and would be offensive to lions. I'm going to call this a tornado of hair. It's a hairnado. And Sci-Fi Channel just got their next movie. Varagon jumped in on a buddy's Kickstarter and got Shattered Sword, while on the other local guy placement got Black Diamond. They seem like they're good, like, opposites. I did pick up Circe for the fun of it last week. I also picked up Circe. I'm probably not going to be able to do a quick how to paint them as easily, because I mentioned this earlier on the stream that they are they're the ones I'm going to be like spending my time painting, just because like you get to do like all sorts of like crazy bright colors and stuff, and I think I want to like spend some time on those. And I also want to make a bunch of them different from each other. Where is this guy's ear? Okay, that's his ear. Got it. So I was trying to figure out what was ear and what was hair. It is shockingly difficult on this guy. So I'm probably going to finish up the No starter, and then move on to Black Diamond, because I'm literally just gonna bang those guys out and teach you guys how to bang them out in like an hour and a half. Maybe not you guys specifically, but you people on the internet. Chibi Vampire says he's gonna main Corsairs or Doctrine. Cool. Very honest, from what I've seen, no look best painted, at least from all the players who have posted images. They are how do I say this? I think a lot of forces have, or a lot of games in miniature lines, they'll have certain things that are like really easy to paint up in a very striking way. And I think No are that faction for Relic Knights, because the Corsairs, like both the Corsairs and the Doctrine suffer a little bit from the fact that they are a little all over the place thematically. Like they don't have a ton of uniform looking models. Like obviously the Black Diamond, they're all literally wearing uniforms, and so they will look really good together, and they're super easy to paint, but they don't have a lot of like striking things about them. The Shattered Swords, like they kind of encourage you to paint them in a bright color scheme, and that's really hard to do well. And it's probably still not all that striking when you see it. So that's Corsairs, Doctrine, and Doctrine have like sort of the eclectic feel to them, even though I don't play them, so it's a little odd. But you know, what can you do? But like I said, like they have all different kinds of units, and the units don't look similar. Black Diamond are boring. Shattered Swords are hard to paint. Circe are going to be difficult, because if you do try to do them in the bright like racing colors, like in their fluff, it's gonna look weird, or it's gonna be hard to do well, very much like the Paladins. But the No they're kind of like, say, like orcs in 40K, where you can do their skin a bright color in a really easy way, and it'll look good. And then you just, if you paint their skin a bright color and paint their armor, silver and gold, then they're just going to look, they're going to look good, and they're going to look bold, and they're going to look interesting. And none of the other armies have anything that's that easy to put together. If that makes, look wise. So that's my opinion. I think you're gonna see that a lot. So what else we could say? Chibi Vampire is going to main Corsairs or Doctrine. So maybe you like that. This is not exactly what we're talking about at that point, but maybe you like that sort of eclectic feel. It's kind of cool. Alright, so that's all the hair. Man, that was a pain. No Look Best. Yeah, I'm trying to finish a couple of Eldorado starters before I paint my Shattered Sword. Okay. I have not painted any Eldorado. I was not terribly familiar with it. I looked at a couple of the models, but not much more than that. Corsair makes sense because they're pirates. Yeah, they're kind of eclectic looking. Alright, so now that we did that, let's go ahead and see if we can get a nicer close-up look of this armor we did earlier. I gotta hold it from under. Sorry, I'm trying to... Gonna cheat. So we did the armor earlier today. And I'm liking the way it looks. It looks like this tarnished gold color. Hopefully I'm going to take some pictures and make those a little more easily accessible. But it looks like this tarnished gold. And their skin we did in the last video. If you guys weren't around for that, I have a video up on the YouTube channel. The YouTube channel is linked in the notes, below the channel there, so you can see that and see how we did the skin. So today we did the gold was already base coated. So we dry brushed that up to the golds and ink washed it. We then base coated all the khaki cloth and now the hair, just so that'll be done for next time because it wasn't touching any of the gold. And so this actually like his gun a lot. It looks pretty cool with the gold. I think that's pretty cool anyway. Why don't you focus, webcam? It's very unhappy focusing on these things, so I apologize for that, everybody. Focus. You jerk. I was doing it earlier tonight. Focusing properly. Anyway, that's what we did. Did you base in a tan/brown for the gold? No, so I did it was 10 bits. So, for the craziness, I am using Vallejo model colors, which steal all of their names from the old line of Games Workshop paints. So, the color I used was called Tinny Tin, which is the lamest name of all time, possibly. Which was 10 bits by Games Workshop, which is now, I have no idea, by Games Workshop, because they've changed all their paints up and changed their names. So it was like a deep sort of tin color. Let me find it here and hold it up. Yeah, so it's like this color. Yeah. And then I dry brushed it with a bronze color and then a gold color, and we washed it with some black and brown ink washes. So now for the last thing we're going to do today, I think, I'm going to put a base coat of, what is it called here? Gunmetal metal. Love these names. They're so good. On the metal. This is bolt gun metal in Games Workshop land, and it's basically just like sort of a darker metal color. And then we're going to dry brush that up and make it look pretty, probably next time. Oh, we also base coated Zenaida here with an Imperial Purple. I'll spend a little more time on her than these guys. She is a knight. Yeah. So yeah, shoot it at me if you guys have any more questions while I'm doing this. Again, this part is base coating is boring, which is why I tried to do some of it before we're on the stream, but. Having you guys in the chat makes this much more fun and easy. So hit me. So when you paint your Shattered Sword, what brand of paintbrushes do I use? I use a lot of Games Workshop ones, and that's not necessarily because I think they're good or like the best or like even great or anything. It's just because I like that I worked at Games Workshop for a number of years, and so I got very used to them. I really like them for their dry brushes. Their dry brushes are very nice, so I definitely get those. These ones I'm using I got from Blick. They're not like a miniature company. They are like an actual art supply store. So you would get those at I got them online. We did a big group of us did a deal to get shipping on them. But yeah, they've treated me pretty well. So that's what I'm using right now. Your bases look pretty simple as well. What was the process, or should I look at an older video? I haven't actually completed the bases yet, so but what I do, I know sometimes people will suggest priming in white for whatever reason. There's something that I would do priming in white. I'm probably going to prime my Cersei in white, but I prime almost everything in black, even if it's going to be a bright color, because I think that there's some tricks you can do to get them up there. And so, but what I always do for my bases is for my models after I prime them in black is that I dry brush them with a light silver color. Not light silver, light gray color, excuse me. And so in this case it was Fortress Gray. And so with that, and I talked about this a little earlier, it does two things. And sorry for repeating myself if anyone heard this before. But one thing it does is it allows you to see all the detail in the model. Because a lot of things you'll see are you might not see with just your primer. There'll be like little details, like there'll be little gems or little whatevers. But if you then hit it with a quick dry brush of the light gray, it'll bring out all of those details and you can see them, and that way it'll allow you to give you a better chance at painting them up properly. And the second thing it does is that it lightens up your base coat. So then when I'm trying to, like, say when I had to do these guys and I had to base coat their skin with a red, I used the Games Workshop base series, which is actually is very heavily pigmented, so that it will coat better. But I still had to do 3 coats. If I hadn't dry brushed it all in gray, I might have had to do 4 or 5 or more. And so what it does, it allows you to get your colors to show up a little better. So what you're seeing with the bases right now is just that. They were primed black and I dry brushed them gray. I'm probably gonna do them, I don't know, actually. I'm gonna think about it. So I picked up let me see if there's any questions here. That's what I'll do the same with my Shattered Sword, white primer. As part of the price as well when I prime black. I then dry brush it up with an off-white. Yeah, I learned that from someone who also worked at the Games Workshop with me. He used gray. I have heard other people do it with other colors, like an off-white. I've heard bone as well, like a bone color. It's probably similar to what you're saying. And I think that works. It works really well. It's the same idea. I could not blame you for priming your Shattered Sword white. but it's so rough. So I'm painting my my Retribution for War Machine white. And I'm starting to regret it. They are. It's very difficult to make look good. So what I do with them, maybe this will help you with your Shattered Sword, since I don't have any Shattered Sword. I'm not planning on painting them on stream anytime soon, unless someone wants to donate them just to see them be painted. And we can make that happen. But yeah, I don't plan on buying them. So, but what I did with that was I primed them white. So I'm a huge component of ink washes, or proponent of ink washes. I at a young painting age, I learned to make my own ink washes, using PVA glue and paint, just so I could always have exactly the ink wash I wanted before all the so helpful Games Workshop ink washes came out. And so they were just, it was just so useful. And so what I do with my Retribution, which are probably going to be very similar, which are, if you're going for a white armor, what I did was I primed them white, and then I actually did 2 subsequent ink washes. And you can actually see this if you look below in the channel. You'll see a link to my webpage. It's Eclectic Gamer. It's eclectic-gamer.com, and then on there you can see a number of. You can look for Retribution Battle Mage painting guide or something. So I did a guide on how I did my Battle Mages, but I did 2 subsequent ink washes. One in I'm off screen here, sorry guys. One in a darker gray, not a really dark gray, but one in this gray, this Fortress gray, and then one in Codex gray, a little darker, and then I go back in and I paint them white, and so those 2 ink washes actually make the job pretty easy to get a nice looking white color without putting a huge amount of effort into it. But yeah, it kind of gets the job done for making a nice white that actually has some definition to it. And so that maybe that'll be helpful to you. If that is helpful, let me know. So I'm going to try to do these painting sessions at least once a week here. Record them. I know I put it on YouTube, and a handful of people have told me they found it very helpful. So I'll keep doing it. Oh man! So not only is there a lot of this silver on these guys, but it's in really annoying places. So and so I'm starting to see what the final model will look like, and so that's always a nice place to get to, because sometimes you have an idea what you want the colors to be and it makes sense in your head, but you're not 100% sure it'll look good until you get them blocked out. And that's why sometimes I'll do all the blocks, not always, but sometimes I'll do all the blocking of the colors first, before I it depends on how I'm going to do it. If I'm manually highlighting things, that's not the end of the world, because I can always go back and fix it. But if I'm doing a lot of dry brushing like I did on the skin and some of the metal for these guys, it doesn't make sense to block all the colors first, because I'm just going to slop over onto them, So what made you guys pick the factions you chose? Tell you how it always works for me. I always go with the things. Number one is I have to like the look of the models of a faction. If I don't like the look of the models, then I'm just done, right? Because you have to sit down and you have to paint those models. You have to spend hours painting them, and then you have to, every game you play, that you're going to be looking at those models. So if you don't like the models, that's always my number one thing. I don't like, at least for me, if I don't like, I can get through playing a game with an army that sucks, like we'll lose a lot, but I like the look of the models much more easily than I can get through games with an army whose models I don't like the look of, but will win and are good. Just because, like, then I don't even enjoy the winning if I'm just like, oh, those are so ugly. So one of my things with Relic Knights is, like, I don't like the, people use different terms for it, but like the cheesecake or the fan servicey stuff, like all the half naked girls and stuff, like that's a turn off for me, just because, like, I don't know, I don't necessarily want to see that when I'm playing a miniature game. I'm like, I'm not totally against it, but some of it's gratuitous. Like that one Doctrine model is just awful. I think almost everyone agrees with that. And so Black Diamond appealed to me because they, like they're cool, armored, militaristic, and they had very little of that. Like they have one shot, but you get, I got an alternate pose from her from the Kickstarter, and they have like Suspect 7. That's not so bad. And then I got the Noh because they're all like these big, like, hulking monstrosities, and they're just cool looking, as you can see from the painting. And B, they don't have as many of those things. Like, obviously we have Zenata here, but they're not as much. And they're just cool. And then I also got Cersei because I like the idea of all, like, the racing, like the racing machines and stuff. Like, I think it's gonna look neat. Even if I am apprehensive about a lot of other parts of the models. So we're gonna see on that one. They might get sold. But how about everybody else? What made you choose your armies? If anyone's watching on YouTube in the future, I'm not totally talking to myself. We are here in the Twitch chat. Chat. So, if you are interested in being part of the Twitch chat, you can. There should be a link in the YouTube video here, and you can see the Twitch channel. You can follow there, and you'll get updates when I go live. You can join in. Speaking of which, if any of you guys are interested, you can follow down there below the video, and then you can get updates when I go live. It'll tell you what I'm doing. So I mean, I don't just paint models. We also, my wife and I, stream a number of games. I stream them myself sometimes. Stream our tabletop RPGs. We should be starting a new Warhammer 40,000 Rogue Trader campaign in a couple of weeks. That should be exciting. I'm excited about it. I get to be the Explorator, who is like the tech priest, who are always awesome. Sorry if I keep getting off camera here, guys. I'm obviously not looking directly at the camera, and habit takes me to get into whatever position I can see the model best. Whew. This part is like the most annoying right now, just because I'm like, he's got this stuff that's going to be silver basically everywhere, like all over the model. But they're also in positions where I have to be very careful not to get it on other parts of the model. So, like, the gold was everywhere, but all I had to at the time, all I had to be careful about was not getting it on the skin. So this is much more annoying. But, like I said, I'm excited about the look so far. No other no players in the chat. That's okay. So a lot of these techniques I'm talking about here are useful for whatever you're painting. Again, the way I'm doing with these, and I'm going to do differently when I get onto my Cersei probably. It's basically, and again, I have different modes of painting. So when I worked at the Games Workshop, I had different responsibilities. Most of the time, it wasn't really about having an immaculately painted army in the window, because it was more important to have, whatever the new army is painted up quickly so people can see it, and to have big armies that people can use in the store mega battles and that sort of thing. So my responsibility was less about painting something up beautifully as it was paint a lot of things up quickly. So a lot of times I would say, here's the new box. We want to get it painted up in the next 2 days. So that people can see it, so that when it comes out, people will buy it, right? Nothing wrong with that, but basically I had to learn to paint things very quickly. And sometimes I would say, oh, we need this Games Day army. Every store has to do a Games Day army in the next week, and we would have to bust it out and paint it real quick. So I learned a lot of techniques to paint things quickly, but at the same time, they can't just be like blah, 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 like blah, one color everywhere, technically good enough. They had to look nice. And so the way I'll do that a lot of the times, and I know dry brushing gets a nasty reputation, and bad dry brushing is bad, like really bad. But that doesn't mean good dry brushing can't work well. And so what I'll do a lot of times is, for each section of the model, you do is, step one is you base coat it with color darker than you want it to look. Step two is dry brush it with a color pretty close to the eventual color you want. And dry brush it pretty heavily. And when I say heavily, and if you guys haven't seen it, you can, in the earlier part of the video or the previous video, you can watch it. But that doesn't mean like leaving more paint on the brush. What that means is brushing for longer to build up the color nicely. And so once you do that, then it starts to look a little more solid. It doesn't have as much of that grainy texture you typically associate with dry brushing. These things look like armor plates also, so we'll get them silver. And then finally, you take a color that's actually brighter than... I messed that up. Brighter than the color you eventually want. So I got some silver onto my gold here. And I think I can fix it if I act quickly. That's a little better. And so you do it with a color that's brighter than you actually want, and then you take a nice ink wash and you put it over the whole thing. And the ink wash will do two things. It fixes up any messy grossness from your dry brushing, and it cleans it up so you don't have to, it doesn't look as bad. And then two, it will get you some nice even shading. And that's what I do for a lot of things. That's what I did for the skin on these guys. That's what I did for the gold. That's actually not exactly what I'm going to do for the silver here or the hair, just because they're a little futzier. Like, I just don't think it'll work as well. I can explain why when I get to that. But I was also going to say So I also said to people that if you're doing this and you want your life to be a little easier, I would not do their hair white. I would do it in like a black, dry brush it up with a couple grays. And then ink wash with a black ink wash, and it would look decent, look good, look nice. And it'll be much easier on you. That's the same thing too. Because I think it'll look nice. It looks similar to the way I did my Scorn actually, for Hordes War Machine. But if you want an easier route with it, I would suggest, basically, and again, if you want to bust this out, you want it to look good without, maybe you're not the most experienced with painting, maybe you just want to get it out really quickly. I would paint it with I would do them black, base coat it black, dry brush it up with a couple shades of gray, ink wash it black, be done. And you can do that on the pants and the hair, and it wouldn't look too weird. And it would allow you to basically double dip on that color, right? You basically multitask. And now we have to get around this gold, which is a little annoying, but it'll look good, I promise. Chat's gone quiet. Makes me sad. Because it's so intricate here inside, where all this silver and gold are meeting, I might leave it as base coating for now and come back with a smaller brush on these really intricate parts. In fact, that is what I'm going to do. So you see in here, all in here, I want some of that to be silver, but ugh, it is difficult. We're not going to risk it with the larger base coating brush that I'm currently using. We are going to admit minor defeat and come back in a couple minutes with a smaller brush on that part. You guys can see this decently well, right? Alright, good. This guy is quite armored. He better have more armor than the Berserkers in the game, that's all I'm saying. Anyone know? Oh, that was kind of a joke. Sorry about that. Anyone know about these? No. Alright. Starting to look halfway decent. Again, this is just the base coat, so we'll get some more detail in this as we go. So, just so people are privy to the plan, that probably won't start until next video, next session. I think a lot of times when you're doing silver on weapons and armor, you have two sort of directions you can go with it. So one is Steph.
Going to the office
No.
tomorrow? No. Just want to make sure.
Alright, cool, thank you. That's my wife, just checking in on me. But anyway, when you're doing silver like this, you have a couple of different options. You can go with sort of the grungy, grody metal, right? Maybe it's dirty and nasty and kind of gross. or you can go with something that's more like night clean and pristine, or maybe like otherworldly. Do you paint pretty much straight from the bottle? I read a lot of people like to water down their paints. I do water down my paints, actually. So this is a good example. I just put this little pool of water down, and I put this plop of paint down. So what I'll do is I'll take a little water from there, and I'll mix it in here until I feel like it has a good consistency, and then I'll paint with that. Most paints that you're going to buy can do with some watering down, and it takes basically just practice to be able to figure out what kind of consistency is best to get on there. And you're gonna change a little bit. So if you're doing some highlighting, you actually want it to be more watered down because you want a little bit of what's underneath to show through. If you're doing base coating like I'm doing now, you want it to be less watered down because you want it to coat well, if that makes sense. And it's going to depend on the paint, and it's going to depend on the manufacturer. I mean, even individual paints within a manufacturer's line are going to be slightly different, just because maybe they needed to put more pigment in that paint to get the color saturation they wanted. Some people paint straight from the bottle. Honestly, a lot of this is you can take my advice, but other people are going to figure out what works for them. And a lot of great painters do paint straight from the bottle, and some water them down, and some do whatever. But that's my theory: is that most of the time, if they're acrylic-based paints, you're gonna want to water them down just to get, so you know what sort of consistency you're at. And then depending on the paint itself. So I just put some of that on there, and it's not coating very well. So I think I have a little too much water in there. So you kind of adjust it as you go. Does that make sense? And look at his chest armor. It's a little bit of pain to get to, but that's okay. He's got a little armor plate there. He's got chest armor all up under here. Just kind of a pain to get to, but that's okay. This guy's got like a full-on breastplate. Not messing around. I hope people are finding this useful. The people who are in the chat who are watching, how much painting experience do you guys have? What other games have you played and all that? So I started playing playing and painting miniature games when I was 11. I think I'm a little bit of an oddity in the nerd community, because I started playing Warhammer Fantasy before I ever heard of D&D. I feel like most people's foray into nerd ventures like this is with D&D, and they branch out to other things. But my family just moved to a new town, to Bloomington, Indiana. We were checking out the downtown area, and they had this store called the Game Preserve, which I think is an awesome name for a game store, by the way. We went in, we checked it out. It was a Saturday, and they were doing this big mega battle, and people could join in. You just jump in and use some armies. And actually, the first mega battle we tried like that was not Warhammer Fantasy, but Warhammer 40,000. But it was still super mega cool. And they were doing it again next weekend, so I asked her mom to go in next weekend. She said yeah, we went in. And we were pretty hooked. We decided, my brother and I, my mom would read The Hobbit to us as a bedtime story for a long time. So we decided we liked the fantasy game better, and the starter set was Bretonnians and Lizardmen. So I took the Bretonnians, my brother took the Lizardmen. He was only 7 at the time, so he had a little harder time getting into it, and I did all the painting. But we, he actually got through it really well. He understood, basically how the game worked, and he was able to say things. He understood how he needed to move his units, and even if he kind of learned strategy by trial and error. and he wouldn't necessarily know how to calculate all the things, like to hits and everything, but he knew enough to say, my weapon skill is 7, and he would read it off his army list. And then all the guys there were really cool, and they would help out, and they'd go, okay, well, then you need a 5 to hit. So tell him, he would tell them what the weapon skill was, and they would tell him what he needed to hit. And, he was able to play really well like that. And then I did all the painting for both our armies. And I took some classes there, and I didn't really want to necessarily always want to learn what the guy was teaching, but I did anyway. I picked up some things. That was one of the very... So this is sort of interesting. So I talked about how building up a nice heavy dry brush layer is not about how much paint you have on the brush, but it's about how long you dry brush for and how you build it up. So at one point I had bought these Star Wars miniatures. This is before I knew what all the different games were. I just said, oh, Star Wars is cool. I love Star Wars. So I bought these Star Wars miniatures, and I had this little stormtrooper. And so the guy was trying to show me how to paint it in this painting class. And so what he made me do, and so I sort of in retrospect I realized that maybe he didn't explain it super well for an 11-year-old kid. But basically what he was trying to get me to do is build up these colors one by one. And so he had me paint it black. And okay, this was black. And then he had me dry brush it with a dark gray. Like, it was a really dark gray, like darker than Codex gray. It was like, it was like darker than Shadow Gray. It was, I remember this part. I remember very little from some of my childhood, but like I remember it was dinosaur. It was like dinosaur gray or dinosaur egg gray. I don't know why I remember that very specifically, but I do. And so he had me brush it up, and he just kept telling me, no, you gotta do more, you gotta do more, you gotta do more, and like he kept making me wipe a ton off of my brush and do more, and I wasn't seeing many results. Like, but in retrospect, I realized that, like, oh, it was really building up a dark color, so like the shading would have been really good if I had kept doing this. And then he would have had me go to a lighter gray and a lighter gray and a lighter gray. This guy's got a mask on, so we're gonna give him a silver mask here. And it would have looked really good, but the problem is I was an 11-year-old kid, so I didn't have the patience for this, and he didn't even, in my memory, he probably did, but he didn't even explain to me what we were doing. It's like that this is going to look like this for a while, and then once you build it up and do this other thing, it's going to look really good. But that's what was happening. We're building up these colors, but he didn't explain it. So honestly, if I was teaching a kid that age, and I did many times, but I was trying to teach him to paint that stormtrooper, then I would probably have just gone straight to a lighter gray or a white just to show how it would have worked. And then maybe stripped it and repainted it at one point. Or I would have explained very carefully like what was going to go on there, because I really did not get it. But in retrospect, I'm like, oh man, that was really useful. So now I want to get all up in here, because it's got the, I don't know if this was a good idea, but I decided to paint this like lion dragon thing on here in gold, because I thought it would look cool in gold. But the problem is the rest of this gun I'm painting in silver, so I'm going to have to get in here very carefully. And this is the time when, like I said, I'm going to brace my hands against each other so that if they do shake, they're going to shake together and then look good and not get paint over onto other things. And again, getting the paint all up in there is not as important as just kind of generally getting the idea down. It's like there's some points in there that are gold now, but like you're not going to be able, no one's going to be able to tell. It'll just look like shadows. even if someone looks at it very closely, I don't think that they would call me out on that. But you guys will know. You guys can call me out on it if we ever meet. I am going to Gen Con if anyone's going to Gen Con. Anyone else here going to Gen Con? Going to meet, talk some Relic Knights. Cool. So that's what he looks like. All right. So, whew. It's been almost 2 hours now. We got a lot done. We're not nearly as far as maybe we'd like to be, but I'd rather spend a little more time on it and make it look good here. That's what the Black Diamond's for. Black Diamond is going to be stupid easy. Dry brush some gray, ink wash it, and then maybe do some lighting effects on it. It's going to be stupid simple. So if anyone is so I'm going to show you the models we've done so far, so everyone can take a look. Oh, almost forgot something. The little studs on the this guy's cleaver. I don't know what I'm going to call this. It's club. I almost forgot that. I might have to actually do these studs after I do the club itself, but I can just base coat them now and go over it again later. But anyway, so if you, I don't know if everyone's familiar with Twitch, but thank you. You can, if you're a member, I don't think you can follow if you're not if you don't have a login. But what you can do is you can follow my channel here, and you can get alerts when I go live. Now you will, unfortunately, there's not a way for you to get alerts only for when I'm painting, and you will get alerts for everything. So it's up to you whether you want to take that risk. But you can follow down there at the bottom of the channel, and you can get notified when I go on painting. I will continue to post this in the other places I've posted it. The Relic Knights Facebook page, the painting forums, the Relic Knights Chicago page, if anyone's interested there. But yeah, so should be fun. So let's take a look at what we've done now. So as of last time, we had done all the skin. I really wish you would focus. All right, we're gonna cheat a little bit here. So we had done all the skin. We had base coated the gold. So this session we dry brushed the gold up to what you see there, and then we a couple layers of gold, and then ink washed it with a brown and black to get that nice sort of aged gold color. We also base coated the hair with a Fortress Gray. We also base coated the pants with Graveyard Earth, and base coated the silver with a Bolt Gun Metal. So there's a lot of base coating today in this session, unfortunately for people. But we did get a lot, like getting the gold done, I think showed some nice progress. Hopefully everyone will be digging that. Focus, you. I'll think of pictures of these up later. I don't know why the webcam does not want to focus. Just a little bit. Yeah, so I mean, we got a nicely block colored now. I think I'm liking how it's coming out. So this gold is nicely toned. Like as you can see, the silver is sort of monochromatic and blech. So next time, I think we might be able to finish these guys off, or at least come pretty close to it. Oh, we also base coated Zanita's skin here with a royal purple. So, thanks for sharing it. Very I appreciate that. So the next steps are we're going to dry brush the silver up a little bit, and we're actually going to ink wash it with black with a little bit of blue, and that'll get us that nice, shiny, glowy metal look. We are going to highlight the hair, bring it up to white. We'll possibly, I think we're going to do some shading in the recesses, but very, very light because we don't want it to be too dark. We are going to bring up the pants color to a khaki. And then we'll get all the final little bits. Like he's got a stone mallet, so we'll do that in some gray. That should be really quick. We're going to do all their teeth and the horns we want to do in like a bone color. And we're going to ink wash that brown to bring it down a little bit, and the teeth as well. And we might paint some of the gems in like a gemmy color. And then also we're going to do the eyes. Eyes are a nice way to sort of make a model pop, especially a bigger model like this. And so we'll work on that. And then maybe we'll get some more work on today. I want to do some look at some more models and some of the pictures and see kind of how they've been painted before, just to see what the deal is. But that's basically it. If you're watching on the stream, you can follow. You can also follow the YouTube channel, which should be below the channel there. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can subscribe to the channel and follow the Twitch to catch me live or catch it when we post further videos. Other than that, let me know if you have any questions. If you can put it in the chat in the next couple minutes and I'll see it. Otherwise, you can reach me at eclecticgamer@gmail.com. Or you can message me here on Twitch or on YouTube or wherever. Other than that, I'm trying to think what else is any other useful information. Well, we've done like 2 hours of painting here, guys. Well, and for me, it was 2 hours of painting and talking, so that's a little more to do. So hopefully y'all enjoyed it. If you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, I will see you next time. Bye.